What if I told you an entire ship, fully crewed, fully functional, was found drifting in the open ocean with not a single soul on board? No signs of struggle, no distress call, no bodies, just silence. The food was still on the table, the cargo untouched, and the captain's log ended mid-sentence. This isn't fiction. This isn't a movie script. This is one of the most chilling, real-life mysteries in American history. Because in 1872, something happened aboard a ship called the Mary Celeste, something that has never been explained. And the deeper you go into this story, the less sense it makes. Welcome to AM Story Archives.
Some stories were never meant to be found. Some truths were buried for a reason.
The Atlantic Ocean, December 5th, 1872. The brigantine Dei Gratia was cutting through rough waters when a crew member spotted something unusual on the horizon. A ship, drifting oddly, not sinking, not signaling, just there. At first, it didn't seem alarming. Ships passed each other all the time. But as they got closer, something felt wrong. The vessel wasn't responding. No flags, no movement, no life. Captain David Morehouse ordered his men to approach carefully. Through his spyglass, he could see the ship's name painted clearly on the hull, Mary Celeste. And that's when everything changed. Because Morehouse knew that name. Just days earlier, the Mary Celeste had departed from New York, heading toward Genoa, Italy. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 experienced crew members. 10 people, all gone. When Morehouse's men finally boarded the ship, they expected chaos, signs of mutiny, blood, damage. But what they found instead was far more disturbing. The ship was almost completely intact. The cargo, 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, was still in place, valuable, dangerous, untouched. Personal belongings were neatly arranged, clothes folded, pipes and tools where they should be. In the galley, food was prepared, but never eaten. It looked like the crew had simply stood up and left. But that's impossible, because the one thing missing was the lifeboat. Think about that for a second. 10 people abandoned a perfectly seaworthy ship in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and got into a small lifeboat. Why? There was no storm damage, no signs of attack, no fire, nothing that would justify leaving the safety of a ship for the uncertainty of the open sea. And yet they did. The last log entry in the captain's journal was dated November 25th, 10 days before the ship was discovered. It placed the Mary Celeste near the Azores, but when it was found, it had drifted hundreds of miles off course. No entries explained what happened after that. No final message, no warning, just silence. As news of the discovery spread, theories exploded across America and Europe. Some believed it was piracy, but pirates don't leave valuable cargo behind. Others suspected mutiny, but there was no evidence of violence, no struggle, no blood. Then came the more unsettling ideas. What if something happened that didn't leave a trace? One theory suggested the cargo itself was the culprit. The ship was carrying highly flammable alcohol. If fumes built up below deck, they could have created pressure enough to cause a sudden, invisible explosion. No fire, no damage, just a terrifying blast of air. Imagine that. You're on deck. Suddenly, a loud, violent boom shakes the ship. You smell fumes. You fear a second explosion. In panic, the captain orders everyone into the lifeboat, just temporarily. They tie the boat to the ship, planning to return once it's safe. But then, something goes wrong. The rope snaps. The wind shifts, and suddenly the Mary Celeste sails away, leaving 10 people stranded in the endless ocean. It's a theory that makes sense, but it doesn't explain everything. Because when investigators examined the ship, they found something strange. The sails were partially set. The ship was still capable of moving, which means if the crew had stayed, they could have reached land. So why abandon it? Another theory suggested something more human: fear. Maybe the crew believed the ship was doomed. Maybe they misjudged the situation. But Captain Benjamin Briggs wasn't inexperienced. He was known as calm, rational, deeply religious, a man who wouldn't panic easily. Would he really abandon his ship with his family on board unless he believed staying meant certain death?
Then came the darker theories. What if it wasn't an accident? What if it was something intentional? Insurance fraud was suggested, a staged disappearance, but there was no financial motive strong enough, no evidence linking Morehouse or Briggs to any conspiracy. And besides, why risk 10 lives for money? Some even whispered about sea monsters or something unnatural rising from the depths. Others spoke of rogue waves, strange weather patterns, even paranormal forces. Because when logic fails, imagination takes over. But here's where the story gets even stranger. Months after the discovery, a salvage hearing was held. Captain Morehouse and his crew were initially suspected of wrongdoing. Why? Because they found the ship. Because they stood to gain money from salvaging it. Because in a mystery this big, someone had to be blamed. The court investigated everything. They examined the ship, the logs, the cargo. They questioned every crew member of the Dei Gratia. And in the end, they found nothing. No evidence of foul play. No explanation. The Mary Celeste was eventually repaired and returned to service. Yes, it sailed again, but its reputation had changed. It became known as a cursed ship, a ghost vessel. And over the years, its story grew. Writers exaggerated it, newspapers twisted details, myths replaced facts. But the core mystery remained untouched. 10 people vanished without a trace. Imagine their final moments: a quiet ocean, a normal day. Then something happens, something that convinces an experienced captain to abandon everything, to take his wife, his child, to step into a small lifeboat in the middle of nowhere and disappear forever. No wreckage of the lifeboat was ever found. No bodies washed ashore. No message in a bottle. Nothing. It's as if they were erased. Today, nearly 150 years later, the mystery of the Mary Celeste still haunts historians, investigators, and storytellers, because it challenges something fundamental. We like to believe that every mystery has an answer, that with enough time, enough evidence, enough logic, we can figure anything out. But this is different. Because every explanation feels incomplete. Every theory leaves questions behind, and the truth may be something we've never even considered. So next time you look out at the ocean, remember this. There was once a ship drifting alone, perfectly intact, completely silent. And somewhere out there are the answers we may never find. Or worse, the truth we were never meant to know.